Roses are red, violets are blue, and this is a Dumb Sports Podcast. Listen up, Dumb Sports fans. If you want to win an exclusive prize from the Dumb Sports guys, this is your opportunity. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, then follow us on Twitter and DM us a screenshot of your review and your Twitter handle, and you will be entered to win a one-of-a-kind Dumb Sports prize. Let's make this thing a thing. All right, boys, let's get started. On May 12th, an article dropped on Sammy Watkins where he mentioned that early on in his career, he partied heavily, drank extensively, and used drugs. He said part of overcoming these issues was researching every religion he could find, and now firmly believes in astral projection and reincarnation. So it's obvious that he would be Doctor Strange in the NFL Avengers. Who would be the rest of the squad, and why? T, why don't you give us the first stab?
Well, first thing that I have to say is Sammy Watkins sounds like he used to be awesome. But I'm also really, really glad that he's able to overcome those struggles. I know that that's no joke for sure, so a tip of the cap to him. When it comes to the Avengers of the NFL, my first pick was somebody who actually missed the body issue this year. I was really looking forward to seeing, but I'm kind of sad that this person's not in there. I'm going to go Black Widow. Would be Katie Sowers from the San Francisco 49ers, the offensive assistant. Boom, just wrecking everybody. Right after that, Hawkeye to me feels like a Drew Brees kind of guy, just on target always. And then I'm going to go Incredible Hulk. You think of guys like Aaron Donald or Fletcher Cox, who are absolute monsters. I'm going to go ahead and go with Richie Incognito. You get that guy angry, and he's just going to bully you right out of the locker room. So I feel like that's a pretty good squad.
All right, thanks. What about you, Sean? Who are you putting on your NFL Avengers?
I dig it. I think for Iron Man, I think it's pretty easy. Obvious choice. You got to go with someone later on in the years, and no one's later in years than Tom Brady. I actually have, for Black Panther, I have Lamar Jackson because he won the MVP candidate out of nowhere. Kind of like somehow Black Panther is the only Avengers movie to actually get an Academy Award nomination for being a movie and not for effects. So coming out of left field, Black Panther goes and, makes an appearance at the award ceremony, as does Lamar Jackson, former 32nd pick. And then for Thor, I've got J.J. Watt. And Spider-Man, which I don't know if he's actually technically part of the Avengers as far as canon with the whole Marvel Universe. I don't know if them and Sony have ever worked that out. But let's say that he is. I might go with Christian McCaffrey as Spider-Man.
Nice. I like it. I was going to go Joe Burrow as Spider-Man just because a young guy, accuracy, a little bit like that. Also, Matt's favorite Avenger is Spider-Man. And Joe Burrow is the person he hates more than anybody right now. So, yeah, Joe Burrow, definitely Spider-Man.
Definitely Spider-Man. Actually, I vote that strongly. I take that back completely. Joe Burrow is absolutely 100% embodies the total spirit of Peter Parker, a.k.a. Spider-Man. I like it.
Also, for all of our Dumb Sports fans who don't know, Matt is on mute this week until he says something intelligent in our side conversation. So if you don't hear from him today, you know why. All right, moving along. T, it looks like you found another condition on the rise in the NFL. Mind letting us know a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I've been really inspired with this whole worldwide pandemic that we're experiencing right now. I think coronavirus is getting more attention than it deserves. We already talked about black quarterback syndrome. This week, I'm here to advocate for another condition that I'm super, super worried about. I haven't seen any ribbons on anybody's car for this condition, but this condition that I'm referring to is called white running back syndrome. Symptoms of this include having the words, "then he looks," added to any compliment made about you. The word "unexpected" used by opponents in post-game interviews, despite you being your team's leading rusher and a leader in all the NFL in yards produced. The only time you are called sneaky is when the word "athletic" comes after it. The only players that look like you in the NFL, primarily blockers in heavy sets or have Slavic last names. If one or more of these symptoms apply to you, then you probably have white running back syndrome, not to be confused with WWRBS, where people always are surprised that a professional athlete is fast, though. That could happen to white running backs as well. When it comes to white running back syndrome, I've already pegged Mr. Christian McCaffrey with this. Again, I am not a medical doctor, and much like in the mental health field, you're not supposed to try and diagnose people from far away. This guy is just an absolute tryhard, though, which nothing bothers me more in this world than a tryhard, especially somebody who is small and white. To me, Christian McCaffrey is nothing but a Julian Edelman or a Wes Welker who has figured out, like, hey, if I just move 5 yards behind the quarterback and just keep doing the same thing that I'm already doing, I will be considered an elite white running back. I've already seen this before in the NFL. I'm not impressed. I look at Christian McCaffrey the same way that I look at Lamar Jackson. I was actually almost ready to change my mind about scrambling quarterbacks last year, and then that game against the Titans happened, and I was like, oh, you almost had me. But I am not buying into Christian McCaffrey whatsoever. White running back syndrome all the way. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bet the under. I'll put a number of 900 yards, 900 rushing yards on it this year. That's how crazy I'm feeling right now. Sean, what do you think?
You know what? His usage is out of control, and I feel like, I don't know if people remember this, but when Todd Gurley's rookie season, he came out and lit the world on fire. And the very next year, he did absolutely nothing because teams game planned to stop him. And it wasn't until Sean McVay's next year that he kind of came back to form and surprised everybody. I don't know with Teddy Bridgewater what they're going to do outside of Christian McCaffrey. And it kind of scares me with a new coordinator and new everything. Dang it, T. That's a good line. That is a great line to set it at 900. I'm going to say the under for the 900 yards of rushing.
Excellent.
But I think if you go total yards and put me at, gosh dang it, man. I think he could be a sub 900 running back, but I still think he'll be a positive 500 receiver.
Agreed. Every time I just look at him, I'm sitting there relaxed on a Sunday, just enjoying an ice cold brewski, and I just think of the scene from Bad News Bears where that kid is wearing the number 25 shirt, and the coach said, "Oh yeah, who's that for? Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds?" And the kid says, "No, it's for Mike McGuire." And he said, "Yeah, but he's a white." I think of that every time I look at him. It just bothers me. It drives me insane.
Well, I think you've proven your point. He definitely has white running back syndrome, at least on the surface around here. I also think we need to look at Lamar Jackson for black quarterback syndrome. It sounds like some investigation needs to go on there. He needs to keep his head up, pay attention, keep monitoring those symptoms. Personally, I think the only reason McCaffrey has that white running back syndrome around here is because didn't you compare him to Toby Gerhart when he first came into the NFL? Wasn't that
Yes, I said all Christian McCaffrey is Toby Gerhart 2.0. I did say that, yes.
And I think that's why you're kind of rooting for him to fail. I feel like there's a deep – but I also think if you get a top 3 selection in fantasy, you're definitely taking him PPR or non-PPR.
Yeah. The guy finds the end zone, and he's used – they're going to find ways to get him the ball, which is kind of why the 900 yards rushing but the 500 yards receiving, he's going to find a way to get you points. He's going to find a way to get yards. And he's really – I'm afraid he might miss 3 games this year. By week 6, he might find himself on some injury list. And I think weeks 8 through 11, he'll have less than 15 touches because his usage rate's going to be so out of control. So we'll see what happens with that guy.
I think a more realistic take, I mean, all jokes aside from the 900 yards rushing, I think a more appropriate over-under for me would be something similar to the Jamal Charles with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that he had a nice little run there for a few years where he was doing it all. I mean, he was running the ball super well. He could catch the ball, make plays. He had some wide receiver talent for sure coming out of there. I'm going to go ahead and say that Christian McCaffrey, see, I'm still thinking about Toby Gerhart, does not achieve what Jamal Charles achieved while he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel more comfortable saying that.
I think the big difference there is Jamal Charles was more of a top speed guy, and I think C-Mac is more of a shifty runner who people don't really know.
Who is sneaky athletic.
Yeah,
I was just getting ready to say that.
Sneaky athletic, and he's always unexpectedly fast, right? He's definitely faster than he looks.
Yes.
Yep. More than he looks, for sure.
He's a gamer. You could say he's a gamer.
Yep.
All right. Sean, let's go ahead and toss it to you for one of our sponsors.
Sure. Do you love the taste of light, fluffy, generic, bland white bread but hate Sara Lee? Wonder Bread is the scientific experiment turned household delight that has entered deep into the veins of America's heartland. Wonder Bread is made with 100% wheat with a question mark and fortified with all the chemicals it takes to call it healthy. Pair it with Miracle Whip to turn your sandwich into a cliche. Add extra Miracle Whip to turn it into a stereotype. Dumb Sports Podcast is proud to endorse Wonder Bread. It's a wonder they can call it bread.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to a challenge review and voting. Now, a couple weeks ago, we had a challenge flag thrown against Simone Biles as the greatest athlete ever. I believe T proposed a couple other people, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, anybody else? Jackie Robinson. And so, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a quick vote. So, who says Simone Biles is the greatest athlete ever?
I will, with the word athlete attached to it, I will have to probably side with Simone Biles being the greatest athlete ever.
I'm also going to go with that, since it was my point to begin with.
I will respectfully vote no, although I think that the word athlete is, I mean, there's not a lot that I'm going to say to go against that. I really, really like Simone Biles. Sean and I have had some discussions about my respect for her and just what she's been able to accomplish as an Olympian and a professional. I just think that it's really, really hard for me to call somebody the greatest athlete of all time or ever when there's just that Olympic disconnect. I mean, Michael Phelps has been great as well. I mean, he's a guy that I liked even more when he got in trouble for the weed thing, or there were the weed allegations, whatever it was that happened. I was like, man, that guy's kind of cool. But there's just the disconnect that, I mean, isn't there with a guy like Michael Jordan, whose shoes I can go buy, or Jackie Robinson, who was taught in history class. I think that, you know, right now, Simone Biles, yes, for sure, there's a case that could be made, but you know, we're not going to remember her in 10 years. Like, I feel comfortable saying that. I know that me and the little ones sit here and we watch her, you know, her stuff, and we've enjoyed it, but I'll probably be on to the next thing in the next 10 years, but I'll still know who Jackie Robinson, Muhammad, and, you know, Michael Jordan are then. So.
Sure. Well, and I mean, I will say you'll know her in 12 years. So every 4-year cycle, she'll get brought up, I'm sure. And that'd be about it. It's the being constantly aware and in your face with everything. I mean, yes. I mean, Jackie Robinson has been taught in history books. The number 42 is retired because of the guy. Michael Jordan, we just had The Last Dance, which I imagine if you were to pull numbers on just sheer viewership, I'm sure it rivaled anything that the Olympics probably would have pulled this year anyway. So it's really difficult to and, you know, and you talk Michael Phelps. See, I like Michael Phelps for the fact that his diet consisted of consuming 10,000 calories in a day. Because I'm a big
all of it from Subway.
Oh, dude, yeah, Subway seems like good. Jared Fogel's a good guy, right? But yeah, that's one of those things where I'm just looking at the word athlete. And that's something, I mean, and there's a lot of, I mean, guys like Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, dudes that play at the professional level, multiple sports that are, I mean, to hit a ball moving 90 miles an hour, which sports science has shown is faster than the blink of an eye, to be able to coordinate your hands to hit a ball, to play, and especially play the outfield in baseball. People have a hard time in slow pitch softball tracking a ball, let alone being able to pick up the spin and rotation off a ball that far away when you're close to 400 feet. You know, and Bo Jackson, I'm sure, could throw over 95 miles an hour from the warning track. Mm-hmm. On top of the fact that he was trucking dudes on Monday Night Football. I mean, that's a difficult thing when you look at just like Bo Jackson was powerful and fast, which was scary. Deion Sanders was, I mean, they have the 30 for 30 about him playing both baseball and football in a singular day, well, within a 24-hour time frame. So, I mean, but Simone Biles, she wins by such a ridiculous margin in her own sport. It's hard to look past that when every year in the World Championships or with every 4-year cycle in the Olympics, prior to Simone Biles, the degree of winning was so marginally thin, and then she shows up and destroys everything. It's hard to look past that from an athlete-only perspective. So that's why I lean towards it. You can make the argument for everyone else, and I'd listen to it. But if she's going to be put into the conversation, I'm okay with leading off with her.
I think it's a great argument, and the more we talk about it, the more I appreciate these talks that we have. I think for me to be able to give her my vote, though, I want to put her on my list of challengers for Pros versus Joes. One, I'm really trying to get that show to come back, but I think I got a pretty solid episode with the people that I've talked trash on. I mean, I've already said that I don't think Floyd Mayweather could knock me out in one punch. I've also said that I could stop Trent Richardson on a goal line stand. And now I'm going to go straight up backflip competition with Simone Biles. And let's just settle this on TV. Nobody's accepted any of my challenges, but I'm always ready. Everybody knows I keep myself in great shape at all times. I just ran the 40-yard dash today, got under a 6. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Yep. And we're world famous now, so you got to be careful. Somebody's going to hear this. So Trent Richardson, if you're listening, this dude wants to stand you up on a goal line stand. Best 2 out of 3. Because he will get you once.
At least.
Oklahoma drill.
Oklahoma, all day.
Yeah, so part of the reason I brought up Simone Biles in the first place was just the margin of victory that Sean already mentioned. I went into a little bit of detail with that with you guys. But I think also just the fact that she's doing things that nobody has ever done before on a regular basis. They have to keep renaming or naming new tricks, new skills after her, despite the fact that gymnastics has been around forever. I think it's older than basketball, and yet you still have new things that people are like, man, that's humanly impossible. And there she is doing them. And I get that people are doing that with basketball, right? Like nobody had ever jumped over a car before Blake Griffin in the NBA slam dunk contest and things like that. But other people had, like maybe not guys in the NBA, but it's stuff that you've seen before. But stuff that Simone Biles does, it's not like there's some random person in their basement doing it or like trying to do it on a trampoline and landing it, you know? She does stuff that nobody else can do or nobody else has ever done or a lot of times even tried to do because it was just too much. So that's part of the reason why, I mean, she's just got more speed, more power, more athleticism than any other human being I've ever seen. So for me, easily greatest athlete ever. And on a 2-1 vote, challenge
We have our first
denied.
Yes, yeah. So I am 0 for 1 on challenges. Although I'm not a fan of being wrong, I am a fan of democracy and consensus, and I will wear that. I will wear that on my shirt for the rest of the week. I did want to bring up a fan challenge flag that has been thrown. So the consensus, I think, and everything that I've looked into, projections have Mr. Jerry Jeudy, who was drafted at number 15, to the Denver Broncos having more receiving yards than Henry Ruggs, who went to the now Las Vegas Raiders. That seems to be the narrative. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we will talk about this challenge flag that has been thrown. Sean, I'll start with you. Consensus again being Jerry Jeudy, more receiving yards than Henry Ruggs. What do you think?
I'm actually going to go. I like Henry Ruggs having more yards because of the quarterback play and the system he's going to be playing in. Jerry Jeudy is a stud. I get it, both dudes from Alabama. But going and playing in cold weather with a quarterback that you're kind of figuring out with Drew Lock, I feel more comfortable in knowing what the Las Vegas Raiders have with Derek Carr and with what they try to do with getting the ball in athletes' hands in John Gruden's system than I do about the unknowns of what the future looks like in Denver. Ruggs fits the profile of what you're going to get from a Las Vegas Raider receiver, but it's a little different because the coach that's there, it's not your typical Darius Hayward-Bay type pick. I like Ruggs having more yards, at least in the first year till Jerry Jeudy becomes, because Julio Jones wasn't going to be stopped. And Julio Jones has played in a really good system almost his entire career. I think Jerry Jeudy, I don't know who else because they got rid of Emmanuel Sanders late last year. They got the tight end that's over there, but nobody from the high-flying Denver Bronco days is there anymore. it's a bunch of new people, everyone trying to figure out their place in the pecking order for the receiver core up in Denver. A lot of young guys, a lot of figuring out to do. Henry Ruggs, I imagine Ruggs is going to be a 1 or 2, hopefully right out the gate for them, because Renfro's still going to pull the slot Wes Welker position, at least in their rookie season. I think I'm okay with Henry Ruggs having more yards than Jerry Jeudy.
Nice. Charles, what do you think?
So I'm going to go the opposite direction. I think there's definitely a possibility that Ruggs has a good year, but Derek Carr does not like to throw the ball downfield, and I think that's where Ruggs is going to be used a lot more, is at depth. I don't see him running a lot of shallow crossing routes. I see him going deep a lot more, and Derek Carr just wasn't throwing the ball deep last year. He hasn't for the last couple of years. Maybe it's because he's still getting used to the Gruden system, but I think he's trying to take care of the ball, and that actually keeps him from taking risk. And if you look at who their backup is with Mariota, he's not exactly a bomb thrower either. So I think having that situation is actually going to work against Ruggs quite a bit. On the other end of that, you've got Jerry Jeudy, who is an excellent route runner. I believe he's the top-graded wide receiver prospect since Amari and before that, Julio. Both those guys have had decent careers. I think now, Sean, you mentioned that the wide receiver pecking order is not necessarily established in Denver, but I think that's going to work in Judy's favor because he's going to walk in and, he's going to work alongside Courtland Sutton, who showed at the end of last year that he's a pretty good target for Drew Lock. And I think Courtland Sutton is going to pretty much keep teams honest and also keep the number one cornerbacks off of Jeudy unless he shows up early. So unless he's putting up big numbers fast, then I don't think he's going to get their number one cornerbacks from defenses. I think they're going to line up with Sutton, and that's going to help Jeudy on the long term. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to necessarily be a blowout, but I've got Jeudy with more yards.
That's fair, and I think everything you said about Carr is spot on, and that was the route that I was going to go. I've watched literally every snap of this dude's career, and I have not seen him just rock back and get ready to chuck it downfield in a minute. It's pretty frustrating to watch. But when it comes to, to me, I got to go with, I guess if I'm going to handicap this, I got to go with the coaching. I know that John Gruden isn't going to roll out the same exact offense that was really built for Antonio Brown last year that didn't have a deep threat. Even if he did do that, though, I'd feel pretty comfortable going with Ruggs. I will go with Ruggs for sure, just because I think with Denver, like Sean already said, there's a question mark when it comes to the quarterback. I'm actually pretty high on Denver. I'm a little nervous to see what they're going to do. I think that they could be really, really good if Locke can even be serviceable. But I think with, Fangio being a defensive-minded coach, I don't think that he's really the type of guy, and looking at his history, I don't think he's ever been the guy that's going to develop a quarterback or really be anything that adds to, somebody's raw talent. I think that Jerry Jeudy by himself is an absolute monster. He's a freak coming out as a prospect. I'm not going to lie and say that that's not who I wanted. But Ruggs in a Gruden system with a quarterback who can throw it deep, who should throw it deep, and is going to have pressure on him all year. I'm really hoping that Carr doesn't – great. If you go for 4,000 yards, and, throw for 72%, complete 72% of your passes, that's not going to get it done. You're going to be out of town and probably, there's better quarterbacks on the market right now, I think, or at least arguably better quarterbacks. He'll be looking for a job right at the end of the year after he just had that new Vegas house built. So he's going to have to get it done, but I am going to continue to bet on this guy. I'm going with Ruggs, so I'm going to ride with Stabler's challenge flag. Some of the key guys that I've seen that have gone with the Jerry Jeudy over Ruggs, they have him as the rookie with the most receiving yards. Colin Cowherd is a big one. There's some joker from Kansas City who I was tweeting with. I have no idea what that guy's name is, but guess what? We're on different continents with Dumb Sports Podcast, so I don't need to know his name. So I'm going with Henry Ruggs. Probably going to bet my car on it, and I feel good about it.
Yep. And see, and one of the things too, Derek Carr is kind of target heavy towards his receivers, which is something even in his best year. So he didn't throw for over 4,000 yards his MVP contention year. So the year that he finished third in the MVP voting, I think he threw for 3,900 yards,
Yep.
and it was his touchdown to interception ratio that was out of control. It was like 30-6 or something stupid like that.
Yep, 28-6.
28-6. And he had two guys that went for over 1,000 on that team. So, I mean, the guy didn't throw for 4,000, but he had two dudes that took up half the yards. So if Henry Ruggs can be the type of guy that gets targets, I know that his profile is different. I know that what he is, he's more of a Brandon Cooks type of receiver is kind of what he reminds me of. And I'm a huge Brandon Cooks guy, but Brandon Cooks is only successful when he's got certain systems and quarterbacks to utilize his skill set. We'll see, and I lean towards Gruden's ability to coach, and if that's what you're going to spend a pick on, chances are that you want to use that weapon, like you said, with Antonio Brown being what the centerpiece of his offense was going to be, and then it went up in smoke. We'll see what he can do now that he knows what he has in his running game. He's got himself an absolute monster at the tight end position. So with him being so target heavy, I mean, you had Crabtree with 145, Amari Cooper with 132 that year, and the next closest was Walford, their tight end, at 52. So you have this giant stretch of targets, and if Ruggs can find himself in that wheelhouse of, hey, I'm going to give you the ball, it's worth a look to think that he could do it. And that's really the only thing is we don't know what Drew Lock is. We don't know who he is as a quarterback. I'm fairly certain I know what Derek Carr is. I'm fairly certain I know what John Gruden is. And that's really all I'm basing that off of, because Jerry Jeudy probably as a talent is better. I don't doubt his ability to be a better receiver. But if we're talking rookie season right out the gate, I think you have a more advantageous position playing with a coach and a quarterback that have been established in the league, as opposed to a system that, hey, this is brand new, let's figure it out and see what happens.
That's fair. And the one thing I'll say there is, just to be fair to Derek Carr, he would have had 4,000 yards if he didn't break his back.
True story. Yeah.
Or if he didn't twist his ankle. And by twist his ankle, Charles, you said it best. Twist his ankle off of his entire leg.
Yep. Shout out Utah State Donald Penn, your boy.
And we're back. This segment, we're going to go into a little bit of dumb sports news. Greg Hardy, the former NFL player who was once arrested on charges of assaulting an ex-girlfriend, won his match in the UFC on May 9th. What are other things people could be ironically good at that make you feel terrible? Sean, why don't you lead us off?
Things that you could be good at that people that would make you feel terrible. I think Ricky Williams is a dare officer for elementary school kids. I think Dante Stallworth as a traffic cop, or also leading people across the street, would be a really bad thing. And that's pretty much all I've got. T, how about you?
Right out of the gate, I got Antonio Brown as a mental health professional, or I got Big Ben Roethlisberger as a nutritionist.
Ooh.
Charles,
how about you?
I've got Plaxico Burress as a gun safety instructor.
All right. I've actually got a JPP as a bomb technician. Shout out T for that one. That's a great one.
I actually had JPP as a pyrotechnician.
Yeah, those are terrible.
I like it though. What's Alden Smith doing anyway?
What?
What's Alden Smith doing these days anyway? He's got to be on this list.
TSA agent for sure.
Excellent.
I've got Tom Brady as a tire pressure technician at Discount Tire.
I've got a few others, but I'm not using them. I've got to keep those stashed away.
We'll tweet the details about those later.
Yeah, if one comes to you, just go ahead and drop it out. All right, last year, a Calvin College baseball player named Ricky Padilla stole the San Diego Padres Twitter handle when they switched it to @Madres for Mother's Day. If you could steal one website name or social media handle for self-serving purposes, which would it be and why? T, why don't you start us off?
I think with social media handle, I would have to go with Gabriel Iglesias. Not so that I could, do anything for just so I could delete it. I'm sick of being compared to that guy. Drives me insane. It's pretty funny though. And then if I had to go with website, I think I'm gonna go with roundandbrown.com. Very ironic, it would get Dumb Sports Podcast on the map a little bit further. People wouldn't be expecting it, but they'd be like, I guess that makes sense.
How about you, Sean? What are you thinking?
For our social media, for our own purposes, for Dumb Sports Podcast, I'd take For the Brand or @Pat McAfee Show, just so I could plug us away, because I feel like we have a similar audience, the Barstool Sports Boys. Joe Rogan Experience, I would steal his people as well, just to get eyes on us. Oh my gosh, Joe Rogan put something on there, and they come and find out that it's a bunch of dudes talking sports and being dumb. Also, an interesting idea for a show is to have our spouses or significant others talk about like the Stanley Cup. So if there was, say, for example, Lorena and Tiana, you could call that 2 Girls, 1 Cup. That would be something that I think we could get away with. I think that's something that probably should be a thing, like away from what that is. So I'd be okay with taking that handle.
All right. Yeah, so originally I was thinking about going with Woj, just so I could drop fake trades like crazy right before the NBA draft. That would mess with not only fans, but I think if I had Woj's actual Twitter handle, I'm pretty sure that teams would actually get frustrated because they'd be like, what? I thought I had a deal with them, and now they're trading it to someone else? It'd be pretty fun. But at the same time, I decided to go back on that, and I decided I'd take the Kardashians' Instagram account. And in 1 hour, I would sell however many ads I could, because if I remember correctly from the Firefest documentary, they get paid $250,000 for every single ad or endorsement or promotion that they do. So if I could go ahead and take care of that for, an hour, drop 300 ads, I'd be okay.
Yeah, ain't no one gonna be mad at you for that. Go get it.
I think it'd be illegal if I just went and got it, but.
Oh, I'm saying go get that money, man. I'm for it, man. You go and do that. Get after it.
I thought you were saying to go hack the Kardashians.
I mean, if you can.
No,
No one knows. Oh, you know what? Actually, I take that back. Everybody knows. Again, we're worldwide, and I forget sometimes. I got to watch myself.
All right. A string of earthquakes has been affecting the island of Puerto Rico over the last few weeks, raising concerns to those who live there. We want to lend them our support and hope to raise awareness with this segment. But also, what natural disasters could make a sport the most entertaining? I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say hurricane kickball. I think if you were playing kickball in 90 to 200 mile an hour winds, it would be a completely different game and incredibly fun and scary. What about you, Sean? What are you thinking?
I'm going to have to go with tsunami surfing. That could be all sorts of dangerous and terrifying, but also you can get guys riding waves forever. Because tsunamis aren't known for being big, but that sucker will take you forever. So if you want to see guys surfing inland or on the freeway, check out tsunami surfing. And it kind of has a ring to it. So I'm going to have to go with tsunami surfing.
I was actually going to say tsunami water polo, just to make the players stay underwater and drown, because if you play water polo, you are a douche. But I guess I have to come up with a new idea. So I'm going to go tornado baseball. Easy. You already get jet streams at Coors Field, so now we just get a nice little tornado going. Was Kevin Costner in Twister?
Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton. Okay, yes, there we go. The same guy who played Batman the last time. Yeah, like that. Yeah, it's good.
This is where we get a Bob drop. Robert will find this part and will kill us.
Oh, the dude. Oh, wait. He's the Twilight guy. Bob Paxton. That's my
bad. Well, it's funny because that guy's going to be the Batman guy too, Robert Pattinson. But yeah, shame on me for knowing that. I'm actually going to go, just because we talked about douches and making sure they drown. This isn't a natural disaster, but I'd still like to see it anyway, which is Murder Hornet men's soccer. Which I'm sick of myself for even saying men's soccer, male soccer, identifying as not female soccer, whatever the case may be. Anything that has those guys getting actually hurt, I'm totally a fan of. Because again, in the year 2020, when you have stretchers from a cartoon to take people off the field, you're faking it. And I can't respect you. So Murder Hornet, male soccer. All the way down for it.
I would actually watch that. I think at least the first match, right? After that, it might get boring, but yeah. I think there's some other stuff that could be fun with some earthquakes. I'd do earthquake bowling because it's the only way I could ever be decent at bowling. I'm sure anybody who's listening to this that knows me knows I am terrible at bowling. My wife is a fantastic bowler, and I never win. So I'd like to do some earthquake bowling and have a chance to break 100, get that triple digits.
Yep. I think avalanche cross country skiing, another incentive, or whatever the Norwegian drive-by is, where they got the cross country skiing and then they shoot targets. I think that one would be a fun one with an avalanche too. That would be another one for me, is throw an avalanche in there with rifles and cross country skiing. I mean, somebody's going down, so that'd be real fun.
Avalanche biathlon.
There you go, biathlon, Norwegian drive-by, same thing.
Norwegian drive. That does sound like a more fun to watch sport than biathlon, actually. Let's go watch Norwegian drive-by.
Yep.
All right, so this is the first time in the history of the NFL that no team is going back-to-back on the road or at home to start the season. So, to honor that the first time ever that every team has one home game and one road game to start the season, what is one thing you would only do at home and never on the road, or vice versa? T, why don't you get us started off?
So right off the cuff, I think I'm just grossed out by public pools to the max. Couple on the top of my list: Leighton Surf and Swim, gross. Ben Lomond or Ogden High swimming pools, disgusting. Or the worst of all, the Marshall White Center pool, where it's 25 cents to get in and they just let anyone in. I get why, but still, it's disgusting. But if you get me on the road in any hotel, I will be in that pool like Flipper. Like, it is absolutely insane. The Tropicana in Las Vegas, I have spent more hours in that pool than I have spent almost, I don't know, like, just name it. Like, I mean, I will go into any pool at any hotel. It doesn't matter where. I don't know what it is, but that seems like a road activity to me.
Sean, what about you? What's something you would only do at home and never on the road, or vice versa?
It actually switched for me. So this is something that I used to only exclusively do at home and never on the road. And then Corona and COVID-19 kind of screwed things up. And then for saving money and supplies, it's the only thing I do on the road and very rarely at home. And that's, going number 2, man. Like, that's something you kind of want to have your own place at your house to where you can sit and relax. Well, when TP is going out of control, I hate to say it, but if I'm on the clock and it's almost time for me to go home, I'm making the pit stop. I used to never, ever, ever, like, I just waited till I got home. Nope, not anymore. I'm saving that supply for myself. So Rona threw things out of control, threw it out of whack, and went from being only a home and never away to only away and sometimes at home.
Is it just me, or is it like now that, like, when you go through toilet paper at your house, every roll you use is like the scene in Beauty and the Beast when one of the rose petals falls off and he like screams and is just like losing his mind? Like,
yep, like I'm about to die, like something terrible. And you can hear the music and the lighting.
The curse, yeah.
Yep. Well, I mean, we're down to like our
down and
too. Like, recent months, we are able to at least get, the good stuff. If you want your Charmin, you want your Angel Soft, that's available now. But back in the beginning, like right when we started this, when everybody was still at home, it was kind of one of those things. Like, we're now 8 weeks into this. And, I was like, dude, so we ended up getting some real like half ply, like literally could see yourself through, because it's so like nothing. It's like 40 grit sandpaper. So you're totally, you're basically using the entire roll in one trip, because you got to freaking throw that sucker to the ground and let it, fold on itself on the bottom of the freaking, roll before you even try to use that thing, because, you're going to be washing your hands forever, because that stuff sucks. We're still burning up some of our half ply. So we've actually, the reserves are back. But I feel like in the fall, we're going to be all back, at home doing nothing, social distancing and all that nonsense. So I'm still, conservative mindset. That's a freaking on the road. We actually have a place at work called the Executive Suites, because it's away from everybody else, and you get a chance to hang out and do your business. That's the only place I'll be. Like, before I come home and start my trip, that's where I go. Charles, how
See,
about you?
Luckily I have a Hispanic wife, so we have a supply of like 600 tortillas at our house at all times. When it comes to alternatives, I mean, I guess that's my first pick, or like rugs. Like shout out to Step Brothers when he hasn't learned how to buy toilet paper yet.
Yep. Yeah, that's and I actually went and looked at it. I tell you what, the bidet business blew out for Amazon. And I've seen dudes tapping into their water, right behind the tank, to where they're screwing on like little like kitchen hoses to make like little makeshift bidets. So
Bridge water doesn't work, but the bidet is full blast.
Yes, sir. So I mean, there's alternatives, but I'd rather not have to get barbaric or Neanderthal on myself, in my brand new house. So, that's one of those things where I can conserve my own supply by using others. So that's what happens with me.
Yeah, for me, I think the one thing that I absolutely hate doing other places is folding laundry. I lived in apartments for a while there where I did not have a washer or dryer, and I had to go use the laundromat for about 3 years. And I got to say that I absolutely hate folding laundry in public. I don't know why. It's just very annoying. So I would usually do my laundry at like 2 o'clock in the morning, just so I could have the place to myself, not worry about somebody pulling my crap out of the dryer, that sort of thing. So yeah, so now that I have a washer and dryer, I'll do my laundry at home.
There you go. That's solid.
All right. So moving on, we're going to go ahead and talk about some deer sports. Have you heard the ESPN sentimental commercials advertising their love letters to sports, going deer sports? Well, we'd like to take that concept and turn it on its head a little bit. We're inviting all of our fans to go ahead and tweet what your favorite sport being played by deer would be. Tweet it to @DumbSportsPodcast, hashtag DeerSports, DEER, and don't forget to include your hashtag to ESPN as well with hashtag DeerSports. Let us know what you think. I will be disappointed if I don't hear anything about the reindeer games.
Ooh.
Lastly, we'd like to shout out our Dumb Sports fans. Our podcast is growing all the time. Please like, subscribe, and review us on Apple Podcasts. We're trying to make this thing as big as we can while we can.
That's what she said.
Nice.
And get this thing as far as possible.
Attaboy.
We like to keep going as long as we can. Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Shout out to the fans. Shout out to what continents are we on again?
All of them.
I think it's Asia, Europe, and North and South America.
Excellent. Things are going well. Also, a shout out to Stabler for the challenge today. I don't know if I said his name or not, but that's where it came from.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.